This is a report that I made for the Power BI World Championships, and the question that I've gotten the most is how do I make this vertical Pareto chart? This vertical Pareto chart is actually a whole bunch of different SVGs that have been embedded inside of an actual table, and you could do this for a matrix as well. So I wanted to show people how to make this today. This specific video is going to be a pretty short one, but if you'd like to learn more about how to make Pareto analysis inside of Power BI, I really recommend checking out the video that will be in the description. This is an hour-long tutorial about how to do dynamic Pareto analysis in Power BI, and there's a GitHub file from my actual GitHub that you can just follow to do this analysis. There's a Pareto Design Starter Power BI file, which will essentially have all of the different measures that you need except for the SVG. So I really recommend that you do this part first if you actually want to have all of the measures that you need in order to do, well, this last part right here, which is making this SVG. And one final thing to say is that this specific SVG that I've created is based on Kurt Bueller's SVG for bullet charts that he has in his GitHub file, which I will also link in the description. But let's get into it. I will be giving you these 5 different measures that will function with 5 different types of Pareto charts that you can make with the video that I've mentioned before. The purpose of these 5 different, Pareto charts is mostly to do with the table itself. The actual Pareto chart is relatively, straightforward to make, but the actual tables are a little bit different. So this is the first table. Here, the only significant thing is that there is conditional formatting of the colors here. The second table allows you to basically have an others section, which is fine, but it just basically takes the top, items and then shows you how many of the items are others. But this always kind of follows the 80%. Okay, so if I put 0.8 here, it always follows the 80% cutoff. So if I try to look at more items, doesn't actually show me more items. So it's kind of like a flawed table. So I don't really recommend using this. The static others group here, this one's, kind of interesting because this, if you had it exactly at 0.8 every single time, this would work. It isn't dynamic. So that's kind of the problem with this. It only works when the cutoff is set to 80%, but it separates the value into 2 different tables. That's fine. That's pretty great. But we can actually take these 2 static versions and make it dynamic so that if you have less, then the others kind of follows along with it, which is kind of what you want the others to actually do, right? It makes sense that this other section is only one file, one row inside of the table. And for the dynamic others hierarchy, this kind of does the same, where you can basically have different hierarchy levels that are clearly nice and visible. And we're going to talk about how these can all have wonderful Pareto charts that look like this. So right now, this is something that I do need to change the formatting so that we can turn the row padding off. And then you can see that this is essentially a split Pareto chart. Or if we go to the basic one here, we'll just, add this, remove the row padding. And now we have a perfect inline Pareto chart, which is showing the customer and basically everything that we need to see. And I love this. And we're going to walk through this in just a moment. Okay, so let's start here. And we're going to just remove this, big piece of text. And unfortunately, I don't really have a way to change the background on this right now. So we're just going to make the background here for the table 100% like this, because I'm not going to go and change the background just for this video. I think it's completely okay. So one thing that you can see here is that this works pretty okay. We can do some things to make it look a little bit better. Let's put this after the rank. Let's, make the revenue GT and all of this stuff a little bit wider and, column, size. And probably, this is enough for you to see that we can, utilize this in a pretty efficient way. And the fact that you can just, modify it and the color changes, appropriately. This is fantastic. The actual SVG code looks like this. There's a lot to take in, so we're going to walk through this step by step. Okay, So the first thing that you have to realize is that in my table, what I'm using is very, very important because inside of this table, I am doing a Pareto analysis of the revenue by the customer. So I want to see which, it's a customer has the highest revenue, etc. And I need to rank them by the revenue. And then I also need to have the percentage of the revenue and the revenue, the cumulative revenue and the percentage of the cumulative revenue. And this all ties in to, to make this table. Inside of this report, I actually need to have the revenue. And then there is something that I have here, the cumulative revenue percentage copy. This is just the cumulative revenue percent. It's just a typo that I have. So the cumulative revenue percentage is what is the cumulative revenue. So the addition of every single row with, all of the rows that came previously. So 3.5, 6.5, which is 3.5 plus 3, etc. But what is the cumulative revenue divided by the total revenue? So what's that percentage? This is the cumulative revenue percentage. This is important because that represents this line. The actual bar is just, it's like this revenue right here. And inside of the SVG, if you wanted to use this yourself, what you would need to do is you would need to change the actual, it's like measure that you're looking at for the bars, the target for the lines, and then you would need to go and find this specific column name. I'm using a column called customer from my data table, which is called data. If I wanted to, to use this for something else, I would need to basically take that column, put it into my rows, and then basically change every single one of these. Now, changing them one by one is kind of a pain. So if you just highlight everything that you need to change and hit Control Shift L, then you can change all of these in one go. So that's Control plus Shift plus the L button. See? Control Shift L. So if I take all of this and I hit Control Shift L, all of them are being selected and I can type in whichever column that I want to, but we're going to use customer because that's what I've got. I also have, a couple of other functions that I am using, like the Pareto cutoff rank, and I think only the Pareto cutoff rank. And this Pareto cutoff rank, let me show you what it is. This is a specific value which is trying to identify which rank, what number are we actually cutting off the Pareto at. So at 69%, it's the rank 7. If we go to 42, it's rank 3. Only the top 3, customers are enough to make up 42%. And one final thing before we go further, if you want to turn off this pesky, it's like tooltip, all you need to do is go into your format, go into your properties. Let's select this properties, tooltips, turn it on, make the background 100% transparent, turn it off, and it disappears. Thanks to David Batki for actually showing me that, because that was a big headache for me for a very long time. Okay, so back to the Pareto chart. So we have a couple of different, tech measures that we are using here. And, if you wanted to use this directly, you'd basically have to have at least, one target, one column that you want to use that against, and then one Pareto cutoff rank, measure. That is just this specific measure right here. So if you had those four, you probably could make this SVG on your own, which is pretty cool. Okay, how do you actually use this? So a couple of things that you need to know. The cell height is very important. Let's say I put the cell height at 40. Then you'll see that it kind of starts to look a little bit oblique. And if I put it to cell height, not 30, cell height 10, you might see that it starts to look really terrible. The reason for that is because the cell height is calibrated. Right now it's 30 based around what the formatting is. So inside of your table formatting, there is something called image size. The height 30 is exactly what needs to be the cell height here. If it's wrong, then you're going to see, it's like some wonky things happened, and try not to change that too much. We have the width here at 500, and that is also kind of calibrated. At the very bottom here, there is a width value for the SVG prefix, which indicates how big the actual SVG is. Let's say I make this here 100, for example. You'll see that the table becomes very small, but you can also see like the line has become very, very squished. If I made this width into 100, you can see it's still very squished. And the reason for that is essentially, it's like this has been made to be something where the view box is around 500. Now, you can see there's a Wyman and a bar max value. And that bar max value, okay, let's keep this at 100 for a sec. So you can see there's a bar max value. And if I made this into 100, then it looks normal. And this is kind of like, just something that's being done. So I could probably just make this directly point to bar 100, but I haven't yet. I guess it's fine. Maybe let me just do that right now. Okay, so just made that quick change so that it should work properly. So now when I set it to 100, it looks fine. And now when I set the bar max to 500, it's going to look very small, but I need to just change the width here and then it's going to look perfect. Okay, so that is, it's like one thing that, it's like is very good to do. And then the second thing to think about is that a lot of these different things are basically different variables like formatting settings. Marker size here, like let's just make it this 20 so it's exaggerated. So you can see that's the marker size of these markers on the lines. The cutoff outer size and cutoff inner size relates to only one dot, which is being used to indicate what is the cutoff value. So you can kind of see that that's maybe a little bit too big, but that's something there that you can change. And then the cutoff inner sizes, there is a circle inside as well. So that circle can change size as well. Bar Y, this is the position for the bar. So if you change this to 0, you should actually be able to see that the bar starts at the very top of the SVG, whereas, it's like 6 is just like a little bit of padding so that there can be a little bit of space from the top of the SVG to where the bar starts. The bar height is set to the cell height 30 multiplied by, it's like 0.7. So what is that? 21, 22? That is the size of the width. And we can make the bar smaller by doing something like this. 0.5, make it, it's a little bit thinner. Hang on, sorry, that's the wrong one. If we make this like 0.3, for example, we can see we've made the, it's like lines much, much thinner. That's okay, but I think 0.7 is completely fine. And bar roundness, crank this up to like a 12, makes the, it's like edges more round or less round. I think 3 is fine. I don't think, it's like you need to change this, but lots of different things that you can change. Target here has been multiplied by 0.8 because I think it's, it's like rounds out a little bit better, but it's not necessary. You could make this, you could just remove this part if you want. Bar minimum is, do you want the bar to start a little bit further from the SVG? You can do that if you want. You don't necessarily have to. And then here you have the different colors that you're going to be using. So you've got the background color for these items, the actual color, it's like that I'm using here for the baseline is gray. The target color, that's the color of the line, is blue in this specific example. And the bar border has these it's like slightly gray borders. That's pretty fine. But inside of all of these different, it's like Pareto examples, I'm using a color scheme. So if it is cut off, if it is above the rank, then it's either blue. And if it's below, it's like the cutoff rank, then it's gray. And that is being reflected in the bar fill color. Now you could put basically any hex code that you want in here, and that's completely fine. This is just what I went with. Okay. Further down, it's calculating what's the maximum of all the actuals and the target, and it finds, the maximum, whichever one is bigger. And then it's going to use that as a basis to identify how far the bars should be. And excuse me, that basically is most of the calculations that you actually need to know. It starts to just calculate and, it's like tabletize things itself. And the way that it creates the logic is that it actually makes a table of all of the different values to identify what is the target for the current row that I'm on, what is the target for the row that I'm going to be on next, and then it creates a line by, it's like knowing what's going to come in the next row. in order to connect these. And that was not the easiest thing to do, but it works really great. And it's essentially a way to take all of these different rows and make it into one specific visual. And I love that, and I'm very happy with the way that it looks. You could even do something like this where you remove the this is just a bar that is a blank bar that shows the color. You could remove that, and you could remove the rank as well, or put the rank in, it's like here, so that now it basically is showing the customer directly next to the bar. We could even do something like this where the row headers are tight like this, so it even looks more like a table than, not more like a table, less like a table and more like two different bars together. I really like this look. I'm very happy with the way that it is. And I think maybe the total here, I would do something like this where row grand total, either I turn that part off there, and then I think for specific column for this, apply to total, text color white, background color white. So that kind of takes care of that. I think in the row grand total, you can't change this text, so that's a little bit of a bummer, but otherwise I think it's fine. It's still like a really great way to have everything in line, and it's like showing this value. Okay, this is very cool. Why do I have 5 different, it's like Pareto charts, Pareto measures? That's because all of these charts are slightly different. And I thought this was a good, it's like way to use these charts to actually show you how to, it's like actually make it work for all of your different, it's like visuals. So let's go in and fix that. Okay, Pareto chart here. This one looks a little bit weird because we changed that accidentally, but also just very quickly going to turn the background not transparent. Fine. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. What's going on here? Why does it look all weird? Vertical Pareto chart here is different, and you can see that this is different from the initial chart because instead of using this value here, we need to change it to something else. And I think I messed up here. I just need to, instead of using that cumulative value, I need to use this one. Okay, and that should fix it so that it looks a little bit better. Okay, this is fine. What's going on here? Why did I, it's like throw this in and it just didn't start? It didn't work immediately. First thing is row padding. Row padding always needs to be set to 0. Otherwise, it's just not going to work. And, it's like, and that's completely fine. It looks like also the 100% here is just maybe a little bit better. Don't use the 0.8 here for now. But if you want to take that 0.8 off there, you need to take it off from here as well. And, it's like, this is basically what it is. And it looks like there's a bit of a jump because the others encompasses a whole bunch of other, countries all at once. So it just goes all the way to 100%. It would be better if this was, it's like closer to here, but that's completely fine. It's just a percentage value after all. So we're looking at this, and how do we get it to work, and why is it different? Well, the reason that it's actually different is because here the column that we're using is data customer, but here, in order to get this up, we're using something else, customer group. So inside of the data, there's simply a conditional column that has been used. It's like basically based on the cumulative revenue percentage. If the cumulative revenue percentage is greater than the Pareto value, it's going to show others. Now this works as a calculated column, but it only works the first time you refresh the data. So the Pareto value was set to 80% at the beginning. And because this is a calculated column, it's not dynamic. This is one of the big flaws of using it this way. But it also means that inside of the Pareto chart, we needed to go and make sure that the data, customer has all been changed to the data customer group. So just, case in point, if you were trying to use the data customer group, this is what you would need to change so that everything works for you. Okay. I'm kind of going through all of these as a way to try to explain to you the things that you need to change to be able to use this yourself. So I hope you, it's like see what I'm trying to do here. Okay, let's take this one, the next one, the static others group. I'm going to remove this, make this a little bit larger. Okay, go into the formatting, background, visible, and turn the grid padding off. Okay, so this looks really nice. You can see I actually do have a bar chart in there. Let's get rid of that one. And hang on, what just happened? I had this bar chart in here, but as soon as I removed this bar chart, everything kind of, it's like split away. It's just I just needed to reorder by rank. That's totally fine. Okay, so this is the table. It looks pretty good. It's not dynamic. The color coding is dynamic, but it doesn't, it's like split it yet. That's fine. We're gonna take a look at this. This table here is using two different columns. It has a additional column that we're using called customer group. This is essentially going to say, it's like if for all of these, create a new, it's like column that will show 1 or 2 based around if it's, within the Pareto, or, it's like if it shows the customers that make up the top 80% or all the customers that don't. That's fine. But because it's a calculated column as well, it can't be recalculated. And the way to get this is you have that customer group as one level of the hierarchy, and then just regular customers as the second level of the hierarchy. In order to do Pareto here, one thing that's been done is at the very bottom, we do have is in scope customer. And this allows us to not have the total values, but also inside of this specific one, we can see that we're using the cumulative revenue percentage that relates to this specifically. It is slightly different because we want this to roll onwards. So the way that it's being calculated is slightly different, but you can see more of that information in the previous video if you'd like. The column that we're using is still going to be customer. And you can see that the data customer is being shown, but you can also see that we have to remove filters from the customer group as well when we're looking at actuals. That's the only way to make this work. So if we didn't have this additional line and we were just throwing in, for example, like number 1, you can kind of see that it doesn't really filter the colors properly, and it just tries to use the all selected of each like group of, it's like items, which isn't right, which is not exactly what we're trying to do. So this is one thing that you have to see. I will note that at the very last row, there sometimes is like an issue where it just kind of like springs in a specific direction. I haven't been able to fix that, but it is what it is. Okay, number 4. This one is also different from everything else, and this one I'm actually really happy about because of the simple fact that this is the dynamic one where it actually shows you, so you can see that it moves dynamically, and I love this, and I definitely do, it's like think that more people should be using this kind of technique. Let's put the background on, remove the grid lines or the row padding, and then the way that this is being done is that we have a customer and others table. Now this table is a calculated table, and because of that, it's essentially calculating all of the customers, and then it's adding just one additional thing called others onto the customers. If you actually take a look at it, you can see that it's got all of the customer names, and then it just adds others to, it's like the end. And the way that's being calculated is here inside number 4, we've created a specific measure that looks at the top N for, it's like the revenue, and calculates them to say, it's like if the value is in the other revenue, then, it's like we calculate it a very specific way. And, it's like otherwise we show the Pareto, like the regular revenue. And, it's like we're basically just, being able to dynamically say some of the revenue we should see as the others, and some of them we should see just regularly. And I think this is, it's like really nice. But the way to get this to work is inside of here, we are using a different revenue now, because the way that we calculate revenue here is now different. So we need to change the actuals. The target has also been changed because now, it's like that revenue also changes the way that we calculate the percentage. Color has been changed. And now we're looking at this specific table and that customer, it's like field, which is being used inside this table here. And that's the only way to, so get this to work. So you have to see that we do need to change these things one by one. The rank, it's like the way that we rank things has been, it's like changed as well. So you need to, it's like know how to, it's like actually do this. I don't think that my measures actually take care of ties. Maybe they do. Don't actually remember. Yeah, like this is the way that rank X modifies. It's like deals with ties. And if you wanted to deal with it in a better way, I would suggest using the window function to create, it's like proper tie breaks. And then of course, this is the last one. And I'm super happy with this one, more happy than any of the other ones, because it is such a nice way to show Pareto analysis by being able to split these two into essentially two different groups. And I think I've already removed the row padding here, but you can see that I can essentially just hide this if I don't want to take a look at it. And it's like, it's very, very intuitive. You can see there's 12 other items that are hidden here. Or you can see that, yeah, that's total benchmark, 70%, 7 items. It gives you all the information you need. And it's just such a nice way of looking at that Pareto analysis. So the way that this is slightly different is that we have basically a specific table that is showing top and others. It looks like this, top and others. That's all there is to it. For the top items, we're going to, okay, for the actual, I think we're just using regular revenue here, but then underneath that we have the customer. And the way that it's actually showing us information is the revenue is this thing called the Pareto revenue. And if it is being filtered on, it's like others, then it'll show Pareto revenue or the other revenue. And, it's essentially identifying what to show in which, it's like segment, just in this specific DAX measure, which I think is, it's like amazing. And, you're able to modify the groups like this and have totals of each group, which is super nice. So I'm going to upload these 5 different measures into my own GitHub right here. And it's just going to be under Power BI tutorials. And that way, if you'd like to, then I really recommend, it's like going through this, making these different tables yourself, and then you'll be able to have, it's like everything that you need to make all of these different kinds of Pareto analysis charts with your own data. Yeah, so I am so happy to share this with you because I think this might actually be something that I've done for the first time, which is like create an actual different type of SVG. This is an SVG that, together basically makes a chart in line with, it's like reports. And I hope this helps you out, and I hope you can use it in some of your own reports, especially if you're using Pareto analysis. I think it's awesome. Thanks for watching. And if you'd like to have a, more in-depth guide, not just about how to make this, but actually how to make this, then, it's like check out my Power BI classroom. I basically go over, full-time tutorials of how to make all of these things and how to, it's like reuse different elements to make these reports. And I'm going to be showcasing how to make this report in here as well. So thanks for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.